Hi, my name is Luce, and today I want to talk to you about French braids. Actually, it's not so much French braids that I want to talk about, but some tips on how to braid on fine natural hair, or natural hair in general. You might want to ask, why another tutorial about braiding, or about basic braids, or about French braids when there are so many good tutorials out there? Well, that's because there are a lot of good tutorials out there, and believe me, I have watched a lot. But a lot of them are also done on doll's hair or wigs or on girls with extensions. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, except when I tried to do any of those tutorials on my hair, it took me a lot of figuring out to see how that translated to my own hair, which is, well, what people might call virgin hair, so undamaged by heat or coloring or any of that. And in the beginning, I had a lot of trouble with braids slipping down the back of my head, or not staying where I put them, or not looking the way that I thought it would, or I couldn't figure out how to get the look that I saw in the tutorial. So what I want to do is give you some general tips on how to take your braiding to the next level. So this is for people who already know some of the basics. So you at least need to know that when you braid, you put one strand over the other. And it would help if you already knew how to French braid. But I think that if you follow this tutorial, you will learn by the end of it. So good luck, and let's get started. So a lot of people, when they ask me how I do my braiding, they talk about hair slipping down, or braids not sticking around, or braids slipping out of the hair, or how the hair is so difficult to braid because the strands keep slipping out of your fingers. So if you have problems with your braids not staying, or slipping down the back of your head, or any of the things I just said, you might not like products, but you may need them. I was very reluctant to use products at the beginning because I wanted my hair to just feel like my own natural hair. And actually I still do, but it makes braiding so much easier if it has some grip. So usually virgin hair, so undamaged hair, is very slippery. It's way too healthy, basically. So you can deal with that by damaging your hair. That's not the way I want to go. So the other way to deal with that is to use products. And the easiest product for me to use is when I shampoo my hair afterwards, I put some leave-in conditioners in there, and one of them, at least one of them, is volume mousse or texture mousse. And actually I've tried both volume and texture mousse, and I don't really find that that makes a huge difference on my hair. That may be because I have very fine hair. It may be that if you have thicker hair, you do find that there's a lot of difference between the two of them. But volume mousse is my go-to when it comes to hair sticking in the braid. And the other good product that I would recommend if you still have a lot of problems with your braid slipping is texture powder. Because texture powder gives a lot of grip to the hair, and you just buy it in the store, you put some on your hair, and you massage it in, and it makes your braids stay. And it also will allow you to do pancaking on your braids, which is something that we'll get to in a minute. So if you want your hair to feel still soft and not crunchy and any of that, then I would recommend those two products, because even if you don't like products, it will still keep your hair feeling pretty much natural. If you don't want any products at all, I will try to give some tips how to braid without them, but I think it will still be difficult, and your braids probably will still slip down the back of your head if you're not very, very careful. Now let's get to the actual braiding.
So to start your braid, you need freshly brushed hair, no tangles, and then you take a really small slice of hair all the way at the top. Make it as small as you can. My best trick for that is take a piece and then try to cut that piece in half, so the piece is even smaller. Then you divide that up into 3 strands. They don't need to be perfect. Because you're going to be adding in hair, the strands will get thicker either way. Now the simplest way to think of the French braid is just outside strand goes over the middle strand. First on the left, then on the right, or the opposite way if you prefer. Next thing you do is you take a small slice of hair and you add that to your outside strand before you put it over the middle one. Same on the other side, you add another small slice of hair and you put that over the middle one. Now I'm saying small slice because watching tutorials sometimes you think the slice needs to be bigger than it really should be. If you want a very tight braid, I would recommend going for the smallest slice that you can manage. Right now I'm going for medium size in this particular braid because I'm just going for a basic French braid. And if you notice, my hair is still a little bit wet from the shower. That's also to make the braid tighter. Braiding wet makes for a tighter braid. If you want to pancake later on, which we will get to in the next braid you see, then I recommend a drier braid. Keep taking small slices of hair and just keep adding them into your outside strand before you put it over the middle strand. There are some people who actually prefer a different method, where you first put the outside strand over the middle and then you add in hair. Both techniques are perfectly fine. There is no real right or wrong in that. It's just that I prefer this method because my fingers like it. Now, as you're nearing the nape of your neck, you want to make sure that if you want that tight braid, that you don't tip your head forward. It's natural to want to tip your head forward because it's easier on your arms, but you will get a bulge at the back of your neck. And if you want that braid to be tight, against all your inclinations, just make sure you get your head upright or even tipped back a little bit. And also make sure to keep your strands very well separated here. Sometimes some hair may want to add into the other strand, but just make sure that you keep them well separated or it's going to look messy. Now, there may be some extra hair at the back of your neck. Just add that into one of the strands. It doesn't need to be the outer strand. It may actually look tighter if you don't put it into the outer strand. Sometimes putting it into the middle strand is better. And then it gets easier because you can just continue your way down without adding any hair. If you're down far enough, you can bring the hair over your shoulder and braid it there, which is much easier on the arms. Either way, the whole thing does take a little bit of arm strength, so you may want to practice. A few tips to reduce the strain on your arms are to occasionally just rest your hand on your head, or to just drop one hand for a little bit so it gets a rest. As you near the end of the braid, you tie it off with an elastic, and that's your French braid. And this is the tight version. Now I'm going to show you another French braid that gives you a slightly different look. And you can do this with either wet hair or dry hair, depending on what kind of look you want. But the first step is to comb the hair upwards. My hair doesn't like the upwards direction, so that's why I use a wide tooth comb to make sure there's no kinks or tangles in there. So then you separate that strand into 3 strands. You make sure those strands are well separated, and you start your braid by putting the outside strand over the middle and repeating that on the other side. Then you take your wide tooth comb and you brush up another strand of hair just to make sure that there are no tangles in it. You add that to your outside strand again, and you put the outside strand over the middle. Now this technique is exactly the same as in the previous braid that we did. But what's different about this braid is, if you notice, I am using the ear as the focal point this time. So every time I put in a new strand of hair, you make sure that you draw a line from the ear to the top of your braid. And you can think of it by making your head into a wheel, and then your ear is the axis of that wheel, and every strand is a spoke in the wheel. So that way you can see that the ear is the point where you draw your lines from. So all the part lines will be from the ear up to the braid, and that gives it a different look than our previous braid. Now, this technique also brings with it a danger that your braid is going to be loose. So you want to keep your hands very close to the top of your head, which incidentally also gives you the chance to rest your hands sometimes. Once the braid is finished, you can see that it looks different from the previous one because all the strands go upwards, like the spokes in a wheel. But my favorite technique to make a different look out of your braid is pancaking. First I tug up the forward part, so the part that's in the front. And then you go all the way to the bottom of the braid and you start tugging on each link in the braid to make it look wider. That also has the effect of making the braid flatter, which is why it's called pancaking. You tug each link outward while you hold the bottom of the braid, and then you work your way up. Once you've done that, you can massage the braid a little bit to make sure that it's more even. It's a bit of a challenge to do this at the top part of the braid because you have to search out the link underneath the strands that have been brushed over it. And here you have the final result. Now, as you can see, this look is a little bit more voluminous, more playful, and more boho. If you want, you can brush up from the ear towards the top of the braid to hide your part lines. It gives you more of a smooth look. Now, I personally like the part lines in my French braids, not so much in my Dutch braids. So I actually like to tug out the part lines a little bit more, so the braid looks even more voluminous, and it gives you an extra zing to it. And now we come to our third and final look. This braid is the French mermaid braid, and it's my personal favorite. You want your hair firmly untangled and parted down the middle, and then the back of the hair can go straight down. Once you have that, you make sure you section off the top part of the hair and you clip it out of the way. Then you can clip down the bottom part of the hair, or you tie it into a ponytail, whichever you prefer. Now this is to make sure that you don't use the bottom part of your hair until you're ready to, because with fine hair it tends to stick through the rest, and then you've used it too early. Now you do this by making a circle at the top of your head, quite a ways from the forehead. So you make sure that you don't use that hair that you've put into a middle part. Then you separate that circle into 3 strands and you start your braid. Again, outside strand goes over the middle, and then on the other side the same thing. Once you've done that, you take a tiny piece of hair from alongside that circle and you add it into your outside strand and over the middle one. You do the same on the other side, and you continue your way down that way. But you make sure that you work your way to the forehead very slowly. So every single time you take a tiny strand, you make sure that it is not quite at your forehead just yet. And you make sure those strands are super, super tiny. If you want, you can use that same trick again, where you take a strand and then you split it in half, so that you use an even tinier strand than you originally thought you would. Now, as you start to reach the nape of your neck, you should run out of hair. And that is the time where you let down the rest of the hair. Now, for this braid, it's very important that you start to pancake as you go. Because if you pancake all the way at the end, that hair is going to be very loose and you're going to be tugging uneven loops into it. So you want to pancake when you have about a third of the way or half of the way down. You start to grab those links and you pull them out and you make sure that the braid looks bigger. And then you take up the rest of the hair, a tiny, tiny piece at a time. And for this braid, because you want it to be loose and relaxed, it's perfectly fine to tip your head forward. But what you cannot do is take the braid over your shoulder once you've passed the nape of your neck. Because if you do that, the braid is going to be uneven and it's not going to look good. So you want to do the arm workout, live with the strain, and make sure that you lift that braid off of the nape of your neck. The higher you lift it, the easier it gets on your arms, and also the better the braid is going to look. Now, when you've run out of hair, then you do your final pancaking. You maybe do another stitch without adding in any hair, and then you can tie off your braid. And this is where the magic happens, because then you start to massage the braid and just tug out loops a little bit until you get that wide sloped look that this braid has. Now, for those of us with fine hair, this braid may not look as voluminous at the front as you might like. I am personally not a fan of backcombing because I think it damages the hair. So I use a little bit of texture powder, massage it in, and I do use a fine-toothed comb, but I mostly just tug the hair upwards a little bit to give that a little bit more volume at the front. And then that's the finished look, basically.
So that was it for today in the French braiding lesson. Now, I keep saying French braiding, but actually these techniques you could use for any other braid as well. The mermaid braid at the end also works very well with fishtails and 3-strand Dutch braids and any 5-strand braid or any other braid that you can think of. And the basic keep your braid tight, keep it from slipping, how to pancake. These are all techniques that you can use in any braid. So I hope it was helpful. And if it wasn't, or if there's something else you would like me to cover, leave a comment below. Bye for now.